So, we've talked about American imperialism and expansion in the world, U.S. involvement in World War I, some of the issues that pop up constitutionally after World War I. Now we need to talk about the period immediately following the war and the economic boom that resulted. In 1919, there's mass unemployment because soldiers returning home from war find that women and minorities had filled the void of their military service. Now, today there are laws that say that if you are deployed overseas and you return home, that your employer is required to give you your previous job back. These laws did not exist in 1919. While we were trying to help win the war and war munitions are being produced in the United States, unemployment in 1918 is only 2%. In the grand scheme of unemployment numbers throughout history, that's actually quite good. But from 1919 throughout early 1920, unemployment had gone to 12%. And my faulty math on this slide has that saying quadrupled. Well, I'm not very good at math because that would only be 8%. It is 6 times the rate of unemployment from 1918. 6 times, not quadrupled. So that's why I teach history and not math. In late 1920, the rate is back down to 5.2% on the year. The economy is beginning to grow again. Many of these people that are unemployed are finding jobs again. Although stock prices are rising dramatically, wages didn't follow right away. And this means that there's less money for the average American to spend in the economy, which leads to a recession from 1921 to 1922. Here you can see a political cartoon showing the economy hitting the goalpost of unemployment. And here's a modern cartoon. If you don't graduate until 2010, why are you here? To get a good spot. This is drawn in a period of high unemployment only a few years ago. Race relations are a problem immediately following World War I. In Chicago in 1919, a fight that had originated on a segregated public beach escalates and turns into a citywide riot that kills a total of 38 people. And only a couple of years later in Tulsa, Oklahoma, rumors are spread that a black man had attacked a white woman. A white mob moves into the black neighborhoods of Tulsa and burns down many businesses and homes, killing many blacks. Most of these crimes are committed because of the large black migration to the north throughout the early 1900s. Whites saw them as a threat to their jobs, but also to their lifestyle. Strict segregationist policies resulted in many northern cities. A lot of people assume that segregation was only a widespread problem in the Jim Crow South, and this shows that that's not necessarily always the case. Here is some newspaper coverage and some photos from this time period in Chicago. In the election of 1920, Warren G. Harding is unanimously elected president. He takes office in 1921. He calls for a return to normalcy. In other words, he wants to return to a peacetime economy and scale back many of the progressive reforms of Woodrow Wilson. He begins raising tariffs on foreign products to protect American business, and the post-war recession that resulted from the slow rise in wages was over by 1922, and the economy is pumping again. Here is a photo of Warren G. Harding. Excuse my mistake in the dates. He served from 1921 to his death in 1923. The Teapot Dome scandal in 1923. Harding is a good example of a president who trusted his cabinet members a little too much to help run the country. In 1923, Albert Fall is found to have leased oil-rich lands in Teapot Dome, Wyoming, to oil companies, and he received bribes totaling $325,000. That's a lot of money even today. It translates to millions when you adjust that to the rate of inflation. Harding didn't know about the bribes Fall was taking, but he is still criticized for allowing an untrustworthy advisor to sit in his cabinet. He dies suddenly in 1923, but his vice president, Calvin Coolidge, maintains most of Harding's policies to continue to promote economic growth. Our 22nd president, Calvin Coolidge, who takes office after President Harding's death and then is elected himself in 1924. He chooses to only serve for those additional 4 years and not run for re-election in 1928. Coolidge has got the nickname of Silent Cal, and it's because he didn't give many public addresses and he really didn't push many policies. He didn't do much of anything, and I think that's why he's my favorite president, because many presidents who are extremely active in trying to get things done end up screwing things up. So Calvin Coolidge is my favorite president mainly because he didn't do anything and didn't screw a lot of things up. Throughout the 1920s, and we'll learn some more details in our next presentation, it's known as the Roaring Twenties. The economy is growing under what's called a bull market, which means strong growth in stock prices. A bear market would mean that there's either slow growth or a decline. Bulls are seen as strong and swift and quick. Bears as slow and lethargic. So that's kind of where the bull market, bear market terms come from. In the 20 years from 1909 to 1929, and this is a graphic found in a U.S. history textbook I used to use in class, advancements in the factory system, particularly Henry Ford's assembly line, lead to a much more efficient productivity in business. Wages, likewise, tripled from 19 cents an hour in 1909 to 57 cents an hour in 1929. This improves people's chances at a better standard of living, and it is the 1920s that creates the middle class in the United States. Many people who are lower class and earn greater salaries at their job suddenly are now middle class, and the middle class had really never existed prior to this. Many historians will try to tell you that it is the 1920s and industrial growth and companies like Ford and things like the assembly line that actually negatively impact the lives of people. That couldn't be any further from the truth. The middle class is created due to the industrial period and due to the economic growth of the 1920s. This is the end of the presentation. Please make sure that you take the online quiz. Use your notes. If you use your notes, there's really no reason you shouldn't get 100. Thank you. See you in class.